All right. There we go. All right. So thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Denise Pinard, and I'm a volunteer with the UC Master Gardeners of Monterey and Santa Cruz counties. And I want to welcome you to today's program on Tools TLC. Before we get started though, we're going to go ahead and look at our Zoom housekeeping things here. Most of you probably know we've been doing, Zoom for a few years now, so it's kind of old hat, and everyone has done a fabulous job of keeping their microphones muted. We ask that you do that throughout the class. And we do recommend that you also keep your video off. It helps our presentation run more smoothly and just takes away a lot of the distraction here. So a good way to get the most window space for the view here is to do a speaker view. So you may want to set that up. And if you have any questions as it's going along, just go ahead and put those in the chat window, and we'll hold them until the end of the presentation and have Susan take care of all of them at the end there for you. The live script button is working today, so you can set up closed captioning if you'd like. Just click on that near the bottom of your screen. And if you need any technical assistance, just chat directly to me and Denise Pinard, and we'll get that, get you going there. Let's see. Oh, something that someone's already asked in the chat, as a matter of fact. After class, we'll send you this presentation and a link to the video in your email. So don't worry about it. Everything's being recorded. It's ready to go. So we are the Santa Cruz Monterey and Santa Cruz County Master Gardeners. And you may not know about it. Some of you, I think, are Master Gardeners, so I bet you know a little bit more. But for those who may not be totally familiar with the program, we are a group of volunteers who are trained by the University of California. We've been around for over 40 years now. We work with the Agriculture and Natural Resources Division of the University of California. We provide outreach and research-based education on horticulture, pest management, and sustainable practices for home gardeners in our communities. And with that, we can go ahead and click by a little bit here. I'm going to turn this over to our speaker for today, Susan.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great day with this beautiful fall weather, wherever you are. And I'm Susan Udis. I've been a Master Gardener since 2010, and I have decades of gardening experience, starting from the time I was about 3, and my mom let me plant my own pansies in my own little space in her garden outside of Chicago. And I just thought that was the best, because what could be better than gifting your mom with a worm now and again that I would find in the garden, or a frog or some other thing. So the die was cast early on, and then I would go to the garden centers with my mom, and she talked to these gardeners in the nurseries, and it just all seemed like gobbledygook to me until I got to be about 8 or 10 and suddenly realized, hey, I know this stuff too. And my gardening and love of gardening were launched. And as I went through college and became an adult and moved to Connecticut when I got my first real house that I bought in, oh gosh, 1980, I think it was. And I had this blank canvas because the previous owners had nothing that looked interesting to me. So I would go to work and I'd come home and I'd go to the garden center and shop around. And then I went to other garden centers like we all do. And you specialize in which garden center is just right for annuals, and another one might be better for perennials, and another one might be better for tools, and another one might be better for ground amendments. So you pick all these different places and suddenly you're really into it, and you amass these tools and all kinds of other things. I stopped with the tools. I stopped short of getting myself a rototiller because there was a constant issue with something I don't see here. Do any of you know what grubs are? They are nasty and they will ruin your yard. And guess what? The skunks love them, and then they dig up your yard at night so that they can get the grubs. So it was a constant battle, but I never bought a rototiller. I thought I could do it by hand. Oh, yeah, sure I could. So with that, I managed to have several different gardens and different things that I did over the years, and voila, moved to California in 2015 years ago. And again, it was an instant garden that was put in by the builder, who are remodelers, the flip it people. And they had obviously gone to Home Depot and bought one of these and one of those and whatever was on sale. So I had a hodgepodge of stuff, and I just let it sit there for a while and kind of watched it. And there was a sprinkler system with, believe it or not, 7 zones. And maybe a few of you have been over to my house and know that our house is a tiny house on a tiny piece of property, and 7 zones is probably 6 or at least 5 zones too many for a sprinkler system or an irrigation system. And finally, I started changing the garden. And when I became a master gardener, I decided, whoa, all wrong. I need native plants. I need to be more mindful of what really grows well here. And then I started getting more new tools. What a surprise. We love our tools. And then we had some other remodeling work done, and the whole yard was torn apart. And so I'm in the 3rd incarnation of our garden. And now it's all natives, supposedly deer resistant and drought tolerant. It is definitely drought tolerant. Deer resistant, not so much. I could show you a picture, but they come right up to the garage door and almost to the front door. And everyone says, well, don't you have a fence? We do, but they consider it a park course, and they jump over it and they have a really good time. And then I have to get out all the tools and start grooming all the plants again. So there you have it. I like native plants and succulents and cacti, and I grow them in containers, not a blade of grass. And I'm happy to share all of my gardening joys with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So with that, it's time to talk about tools. And boy, I'm going to make you feel good right away. But first, let's stop for a poll. I'll turn that over to Denise.
There you go. Can everybody see the poll?
Maybe once a season.
Yes, we can, Denise.
Okay, good.
Boy, these are people after my own heart. That's pretty evenly split. So there are some tools that I think we all are very careful about, and others less so. The ones that I don't use that often, such as this one. This is my little crevice tool that I use to dig weeds that grow between pavers or places where I can't get at them very well. It's better than a screwdriver. And so this is easy to wipe off. I'm really good with my hori knife. I keep it in its case, nice and shiny at all times. Mainly because when the dirt gets stuck, it's really hard to get it out with those teeth. Then other tools like this, oh, looks like I forgot a little mud there. And then my favorite pruners, oh boy. I will say this, they're sharp. I just don't clean them as much as I should to make them really, sparkle like the sun. That's not going to happen. So on that note, I think we can move on from the poll and talk about tools. So who has the time and why bother? First of all, it's like a lot of things. If you take care of them, they last a lot longer. And it does take time, and you think, oh, I just don't have 5 minutes right now, or 10 minutes, or, oh my gosh, it's going to take me a half an hour to get this crud off of this spade. Don't let it go more than 2 or 3 days. I mean, just, while you're doing laundry, anything like that, you can just go ahead and do something like this too. The sharp tools make the better cuts. That's for sure. And we all want to be kind to our trees, just like you'd be kind to, you wouldn't want a surgeon working on a patient with dull tools. The sharper, the better. It makes clean cuts, whether it's a branch on a tree or a shrub, or the flowers that you're cutting to put in a vase on your table. Plant tissue heals better when it's a clean cut, just like people do. And you want to spread disease? No. So keeping them clean helps prevent the spread of disease. And sometimes certain insects like mealybugs or tacky things like that. They're also better for you because they're safer. If you get poked or cut on one of your tools and it's dull, that's a better site for infection and all kinds of things for you too. So we want to keep them clean for ourselves. And in general, all of us operate better when we're, fresh and ready for the job at hand, rather than when we're feeling a little rusty if we haven't been used in a while. Enemy number one is water. And I think we all know that, but we tend to think, oh no, it's if I get it stuck in something slimy or something sticky or something where I've been working on plants that have a lot of bugs on them, that's the worst. And you have bug residue and stuff like that. But it's the water from rain or fog, sprinklers, all of that stuff. And then the rusting starts because of oxidation. And once the water gets into, joints, that's where the corrosion starts, and you don't even see it. So that's why it's important to keep your tools cleaned on a more frequent basis, a more regular basis. Not daily, but if you use them daily, at least once a week would be good. And with a lot of tools, you may not know that the rot has started, particularly on spades or tools where you've got a nice long wooden handle, and then suddenly it gives out when you're working on something that's particularly stressful on the tool, and you jam your foot into it, and as soon as you lean down on that handle, it snaps off. You didn't even see it coming. That's the part that you want to try to prevent. So it's a lot easier to take care of those wooden parts for loppers or spades or all of those long-handled tools that you have. And not to mention what we all hate to think about, but there's mold, and you just don't want to get that stuff started, because then you do bring it in. You bring it in on your hands because you're touching the tool without your gloves on, or you bring your gloves in and you're answering the phone, whatever it is, on your phone in your pocket, anything. Also, we tend to leave things outside, and if they're in the sun and they start to get brittle and dried out, then you have looser parts, looser connections. So where your spade handle is joined with the actual metal part, it starts to get brittle if you're not doing it a little service along the way. So once the rust sets in, what do? Water gets stuck in the tool joints and under rivets, and that's when it gets problematic. So Tonight, we're going to learn about keeping things clean with you can use a standard barbecue brush that you can buy at any hardware store. Small brass wire brushes, of course, don't leave those out in the rain either. But if you keep your tools in a garage or in a storage shed or someplace that's just protected from the elements, that will go a long way. There are a lot of good things that have multi uses, household things, so you don't necessarily have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. On a dry tool, just use a brush to clean off any dirt. You can start with something like a sink brush that you use to scrape off dishes, just any old plastic brush. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something that, maybe you were going to throw out. Put that in the garage into your arsenal of tool cleaning items that you keep in a bucket in the garage or your storage shed. An old kitchen spatula, sometimes they give those things out at, when the water companies speak at garden fairs. We used to have a water company that spoke at the Smart Gardening Fair. If those of you who have been around for a while remember the Smart Gardening Fair that was held years ago. When the water company came, they would give out sprinkler heads for your hoses. They would give out water meters for plants. They would give out all kinds of stuff, including spatulas. And that's just meant to scrape off your dishes before you load them in the dishwasher so that you didn't waste so much water rinsing them first before you put them in the dishwasher. When you do that, just keep an old rag handy and make sure to dry off any residue. A second option is to keep a bucket. If you have an old 5-gallon bucket from anything that you pick up at a big box store, just keep it clean, fill it with builder's sand, horticulture sand. It's pretty inexpensive. And then just shove your tools. It doesn't matter if they're pruners, loppers, anything. Trowels, it's amazing how well the sand cleans everything off. It's just really handy. And when it gets too dirty, just replace it. Don't use beach sand. First of all, you're not supposed to take sand off the beach, and also it's salty and briny and there are critters that live in there, and you don't want to bring them home. If you've got tools that are wet, you always want to rinse them off at home. At least give them a once over. I'm not telling you to waste water. I'm just saying, just give them a quick hose off so that you don't have foreign dirt, that you're not introducing something, especially if you've been, working with somebody else or a project someplace where you're using your tools on another site. You don't know what's there and you don't want to bring it home. So give them a quick rinse. You can use a wire brush, you can use a putty knife, you can use any kind of, even a crevice tool to dig off big clods of things and put them in your yard waste bin. Pruners, loppers, and shears, you want to give them a scrub with a nail brush or with a dish brush with some soapy water. Doesn't have to be a lot of soap. I mean, really, a few drops of soap is plenty in a bucket of water. You just want to give something that starts to, get underneath the dirt. If your tools were exposed to diseased plants or pest-infected plants or soil that is suspect, you can give them a quick soak with either a bleach mixture. The recipe on this slide says 2 cups for a gallon of water. I think the standard formula is 9 parts water and 1 part bleach. And or you could wipe with a rag soaked in rubbing alcohol. Another alternative I think that most of us have on hand now is disinfectant wipes or disinfectant liquids. Those work really, really well. If it's something, like mold is probably the only thing I can think of that really is hard to eradicate unless you use some kind of bleach. but use your best judgment. I'm not crazy about working around chlorine, but that's up to you. It's effective, but it also, if you have a lot of bleach in a gallon of water, where are you going to put it? And where is it going into the water system? Just food for thought. And if there's something that's sappy, you can use a paint scraper or a sharp chisel that doesn't gouge the metal. But I think that alcohol, mineral spirits, or an oil soap cleaner work really well. Sap can be really pesky to get rid of, but sometimes you just let it, need to let it soak a little longer. Can't be impatient. You just have to let it soak for half an hour or an hour. And steel wool really works well too. The big thing is make sure everything's dry before you put it away in the storage shed. Using disinfectant wipes or using rubbing alcohol will take care of most of any transmission of diseases. If you've got something that's serious going on, if you're working with, let's say, fruit trees or something that has shown signs of disease, you might want to be extra cautious. If you feel that chlorine bleach is indicated, that's up to you. But a lot of those things, if you've got a grove, if you've got 10 trees that are 10 peach trees or 10 avocado bushes or whatever you have, you might want to dedicate a pair of pruners or loppers just to those trees or bushes if you know that they are prone to disease or pests. It just makes it a lot easier, so you're not transferring that stuff to, let's say, your prized Acer palmettum dissectum that you have groomed into this perfect specimen. Household disinfectant we've talked about, and they're also less corrosive and easier on your garden clothes as well. There's a little article down here. You can see this at the bottom right of your screen. It's sort of a little overkill, but if you want to read about, it's a good testament for why not to use bleach. So conditioning and sharpening to maintain your tools gives you the sharpest tool in the box. And that makes you the sharpest tool in the box too, right? So that brings us to poll number 2. Take it away, Denise.
There we go. All right, Susan, from my point of view, I can't see if anyone is voting. So let me know when you're ready for it to shut down, and maybe you can share a little bit on what kind of responses we're getting, or I can.
So you're all probably seeing it except for Denise. And yes, someone uses their chopsticks from last night's takeout, and an old pair of their neighbor's hedge clippers. That got a vote too. And a lot of people voted for a hori-hori knife that performs miracles. I would agree with that. But the biggest response was for my always handy, not so clean pruners. And that brings us to, let's see, if I click share results, then
yeah,
you can all see that, right? Okay. So moving right along, we have, oh, sorry about that. Okay, my screen is not allowing my, there we go.
There you go.
So regular maintenance is important. And just let me see if yeah, there we go. So after you clean your tools, then what? You can just put them in a pile someplace, put them in a bucket someplace, but a really thoughtful thing to do is to try to spray them or rub on some oil. So mineral or linseed oil is a possibility, light machine oil or honing lubricant, or canola oil or vegetable oil. I was talking with Joy and Denise and Trink a little earlier, and another oil that I use, if any of you possibly have teak oil in your arsenal, teak oil is terrific. I think it's probably kind of expensive. I haven't bought it for a long time because a little goes a very long way. But teak oil, for obvious reasons, is used on bright work on boats. And the oil protects the bright work from getting moldy and rotting out and bleaching in the sun. So teak oil is another possibility. When you wipe off the oil, remember not to store the rag in an enclosed space. They are combustible. And once again, the bucket of sand is a great handy place. It just removes the dirt. You just shove it up and down, much like you were, doing a little digging. So the slide says avoid environments that will cause your tools to rust. But let's be honest, everything causes your tools to rust when you live in an area like we do, where we've got a lot of humidity and fog all the time. It's pretty hard to avoid. If you discover rust, and how many of us have pruners that we're not admitting to, that look like the ones on the left in the box, you can actually remove it with steel wool and then apply one of the oils that were mentioned in the slide before. If you have major rust, like the tools on the left, you can try vinegar in a 1-to-1 mixture with water. It does work. And if you scrub with steel wool, that just helps remove it even further. If you've got rust on rust on rust, it's not going to bring anything back to life. But this is if you just kind of let it go too long. And cola, and we won't get into how that's affecting your innards if you are a cola consumer as well, but it does work. I tried it once just because I didn't believe it, and with tinfoil or a wire brush, it really works. Tinfoil is also a great alternative to brushes. It's kind of like the best thing to clean your windows with is just a little vinegar and water and an old newspaper. And you think, oh, but the newspaper, all that print, you can find unprinted newspaper. And you can also, they use it for packing all the time. It's great. It does the trick. And there's no oily residue like there is from a paper towel or a rag, because most detergents that you buy, if you buy any store-bought detergents, most places, they have a little bit of fabric softener in them. Not as much as if you just went out and bought separate fabric softener, or if you use dryer sheets, but just the basic detergent, a lot of them have a little fabric softener in them. So anything that you dry already has that little residue in it in a rag. Tea works too. I think a few hours is more like 6, but you could try that. I think that's kind of something. Why would you waste cola or tea or something that you would consume? Vinegar does the trick, and salt and lemon does the trick. Tool maintenance. I'm sure many of you have taken your tools apart. I have, thinking to myself, oh, then I'll really get into all of these crevices and make sure everything's, operating perfectly. Well, I wouldn't do it with anything completely something where you have to have the directions out. But the pruners, like you're seeing in this picture, you can easily do that. And that way you can lubricate the parts that get the most use, whether they're the screws or the hinge or the cog, whatever it is that you're working on. When you're cutting, you're only working really with the one blade, not the other. So anytime you're working with taking something like this apart, be sure to wear garden gloves and safety goggles. It's really important to protect your eyes and your skin from, little slip-ups. So once again, a little lubricant is the trick to keeping things running nicely. So here's a little advanced step-by-step instruction for adjusting the blades. If your pruners are sharp, but the object cut isn't smooth or tears or, leaves that other little heel, that little nub, it's because your pruner is out of alignment. You just thought that alignment problem was with your car wheels. Nope, it's with your tools too. And if you take the pruner apart, you'll find the problem. It's probably just a screw. I've only had it happen a few times, and it's just a minor screw adjustment. It's really pretty simple. You'll feel very good about yourself. But if you need more information, once again, we've got a little link at the bottom, and you will get a copy of the PowerPoint, I believe. Right, Denise? Okay, well, I'm
Yes,
pretty
the
sure
presentation as well as a link to this video will come to everybody.
Excellent. So you don't have to be taking notes. You can just buzz through this and know that there's more information in all of these garden slides. So as I just mentioned, you always want to wear eye protection. A lot of us wear glasses anyway, but if you have safety goggles, it's a much better idea, especially if you're going to start getting into filing or sharpening your tools with steel wool or a brush. All you need is one little shard to come up and hit you in the eye, and you'll wish you'd put on the safety goggles. It's really a good idea. Wearing heavy gloves will also keep metal slivers from getting under your skin or under your nails. And if you're trying to work on a tool that's a little bigger than pruners, like loppers, definitely secure the tool in a vise or clamp it to the table with some other kind of a clamp that you might have in the garage. A flat file, and yes, it is called a bastard file as a coarse file, and a medium file, they work on getting off the really heavy rust and heavy debris, but a single cut file is what you use for sharpening. And that's what if you don't have one and you want to get one, that's what you ask for in the hardware store. That's really what they're called. You want to match the angle of the blade that you're working on. So if you're working with a lopper or you're working with pruners, it's the same principle. On your pruners, the only cutting edge is this one, the big one. This is just a guide. This is where your sharp edge is. Same on loppers. If it's a spade, obviously you know what the cutting edge is. You want to match that original cutting edge. Don't try to do something different because you're really fighting City Hall on that. It's just not going to happen. You'll drive yourself crazy. If you think you need a different edge, maybe you need a different tool. But once you start filing either with a file, you want to keep your file going in the same direction as the edge. So whatever angle it is, put on your glasses and match that. I don't think you really have to worry about getting it too thin. We're not talking about, honing a turkey knife here for Thanksgiving. You're talking about tools, and they'll be very sharp. You can certainly cut yourself. And you do want to wear protective gloves and eyewear, but I don't think you have to worry about it falling apart on you. And you probably noticed, why doesn't she just say a product name so I know what to go out and buy? Because a lot of us buy the generics because they save a lot of money. And also we don't want to be in a position of endorsing something that is maybe not to your liking, or that someone might think that we should be paid for, and as a nonprofit, you understand, we need to be careful. But this is a nice little video, very basic, but she does a nice job. I can't remember her name, but she does mention a couple of products, I think. But give it a whirl. After you clean and dry your tools, there's that dry word again. You can use sandpaper on the wooden handles. That's a good thing. They make, not just, if you have sandpaper, it's nice because you can wrap it around the handle and you can get everything all at once, but they make sandpaper sponges that are pretty cool. So if you've got a big flat area, I'm thinking more of like a chair back or a tabletop, those can work very efficiently as well. Depends on the tool that you have. After you sand, be sure to oil. It makes such a difference, and you just can't believe how pretty everything looks after you've done that. When you do oil those tools, you don't have to be overly liberal. I mean, you don't want it to be gooey and sticky with oil or slippery, but you want to put on enough oil that it has time to soak in, and you can come back in 10 or 15 minutes and then just take a rag or an old t-shirt and wipe all of that oil, the excess oil, off before you store it. Here's a list of oils, and I'm sure there's no pop quiz on where tongue oil comes from, but probably half of these are not products that you would normally have. Coconut oil actually works really well, but you don't need organic and you don't need anything fancy. I mean, this is where you can go to the big box store and buy the restaurant size of coconut oil. Walnut oil is also kind of expensive. Stick with the things that are a little more user friendly and easy to get. They work just as well. There's also another video here from the tool merchants that's kind of good too. And last but hardly least, where do you store them? You can get cute. I'm sure you can go on Pinterest or Instagram and get lots of great photos of cute ways to store tools, or very specific tool arrangements that look good to you. You just want to make sure they're dry and protected from the elements. So when you get rain or a windstorm, you don't have to worry about them getting sprayed. It keeps the rust down, it keeps mold down. And you want to make sure that they're out of the sun as well. So that's a nice little arrangement. I've tried these buckets. I've tried all kinds of other things. They all start to get beat up after a while. So do what's comfortable for you and keep them clean, keep them well oiled, keep the tools sharp as much as you can, and you'll be a happy camper. Large tools should be stored vertically. If you have one of those wall, like a pegboard, you can get all of the little pieces that allow you to create just the space you need. Hooks work really well for bigger things. Bicycle hooks work great. I don't know if you ever tried those. They actually have been very helpful for me. And I like to keep them off the floor. Our garage door floor is dry, but there's always stuff that somehow gets into your garage. Just keep them off the floor. For small tools, a little bucket, you can have some sort of a soft bucket, or something made out of, it could be an old box that you like. It can be all kinds of things. Again, out of the elements and dry is the name of the game. Or you can have the bucket of sand. That could be your storage for if you don't have a lot of tools. Oh, and the toolbox. Who knew? Excuse me. Blades you want to be super careful of. This old garden hose is a great trick for having that kind of a blade protected from inadvertently getting yourself hooked up. I always keep my hori in the sleeve. It's well used. I keep it all the time. Most of them come with a little place that you can put it on a belt if you're wearing a belt. They don't stay in pockets very long if you're bending over a lot. So you want to just keep it someplace where you can keep track of it, but do keep it in the sleeve. It saves a lot of jean holes. And now it's time for poll number 3.
Right.
Wow, I'm impressed. You're even impressing me. I might have to clean this old pair of rusty pruners. They're not rusty, definitely not rusty, but they could use a good cleaning. Okay, so we did have one person who's going to ask the Tooth Fairy to trade a few old quarters for some new pruners. And one person is, of course, going to keep their tools rusty so no one borrows them. It's not a bad tactic. And about 35% of you said that you would be organizing your storage shed before the end of the year. I think that's very good goal. And looks like 2/3 of you are going to clean all of your garden tools this weekend. Good for you. Awesome.
All right.
Okay, make that one go away.
Did it not?
There. So
All right.
here's a supply list. And again, don't try to write too fast. This will be all emailed to you. But this is all of the stuff we talked about. Nothing's, but you don't have to really go to any place special to find any of this stuff. A lot of it you already have, I'm pretty sure, in addition to your tools. The sanding sponge, that's what I was telling you about instead of sandpaper. I love the sanding sponge. That's a great tool. A sharpening stone or a whetstone is really handy. I think they're a little more labor intensive and worth using if you feel comfortable. But if you're worried about getting yourself in over your head, that's fine. They do make tools that will help you. It's like having an electric can opener. Can you not use the old hand kind? Sometimes it's fun to have the extra tool. And that's it. Time for questions. And yes, that is my garden, and I like fall pumpkins. So all the natives and fun things, and the fence that their deer jump over. All right, I'm going to exit this and stop screen sharing. Oh, I'm sorry. One more slide. I forgot. Coming to your mailbox soon.
Right. So I will put up in just a minute or so a link to our evaluation survey, and it is a huge help to us. Any input you can give us on, how we can improve classes or things that you'd like to see us teach. We're about to take a little bit of a break here until the beginning of the new year. But if there are some classes you're interested in having us present for you next year, we are open to any of your suggestions. You'll also receive a follow-up email survey from the California Master Gardeners. That will come probably in a couple or few weeks. So that just keep your eyes open for that one, and that helps us out as well. It's just a reminder too, and I'll put this in the chat in a minute too, that we have a hotline available. So if you've got questions, you can just go to this link here for the hotline, and we will we will get back to you very quickly to give you an answer or work with you to figure out what's going on in your garden. So Susan, I'm going to have you go back to the slide before, because we are going to answer some questions before we exit out of here. So
Okay.
I have a couple of questions that have
Sure.
come up. And so we'll start with those, but if people have more questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll kind of go through them here. Got a couple of good ones up. Great. So let's see. First one is, do you have any special tips for sharpening lawnmower blades?
I don't have a lawn. And I don't even, I have native grasses, but I don't have lawn grasses. So I turn that over to someone else who's experienced. I think that's one of those things where that's especially important to keep your lawnmower blades, because you don't want to start having jagged edges on your grass. That's not good. But I've always thought of that as something that's a specialized operation. Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Do you recommend storing shovels and such in a bucket of oily sand? Well, other people have
One of the
mentioned that.
problems with oily sand, I mean, like there have been in the past, it makes it seem more compatible with smoothly inserting your tools. But the problem is, once it gets dirty, now what do you do with it? And where do you put it? Does it go in yard waste? No. Does it go in garbage? I guess so. It makes your tool bucket kind of yucky to have all that. It's two steps in one. That's a good thing. You're scraping the dirt off and you're putting some oil on your tool at the same time, whether it's linseed or mineral or vegetable oil. But it makes disposal somewhat of an environmental challenge.
Okay. All right. So there are a couple of suggestions and ideas that people have in the
Sure.
in the chat as well. But they can take all of those things into account and see what works best for them. All right. Let's see. How do you get rid of the sticky sap on pruners? You talked about it a little bit, but maybe a little more depth. This person has used steel wool to no avail.
I agree. Sticky sap is really a challenge, just like sap on car windshields if you park under a pine tree. One of the things with sticky sap that I have found to be effective, and I hate to say it, I mean, but it's you only need a little bit, you could use turpentine. I don't want to keep a can of turpentine in my garage, but a small bottle of nail polish remover does wonders on a small tool. I mean, you would definitely want to clean your tool right away with some fresh water after you've used the nail polish remover. But nail polish remover is perfect for getting rid of sap, and you don't need a lot of elbow grease to go with that.
Do you know, is that the type with acetone, or is that an important piece?
You can just get acetone by itself, and that will do the trick too if you want. You don't need anything fancy, just acetone will do it.
Okay. All right. Can serrated pruning saws be sharpened?
No. That's the short answer.
There you go. All right. So
that's where it's just easier once your serrated tools are no longer working well for you, and boy, I've had one hori knife probably for 30 years, and then I finally got a new one about 10 years ago. And I use it all the time.
So if you take good care of them, they last a long time.
If you take
right?
good care of them, just keep them clean. I mean, they don't need to be, horis don't really need much of anything. You know, they just need to be clean.
Absolutely. All right. So Julie Lawrenson, one of our other master gardeners, has a question. Julie, did you want to?
Sure.
No, I didn't have
Let
a
us-
question.
Oh, you have your hand up.
Oh. I don't know why my hand's up, but I don't have a question.
Hey, Julie.
We'll all
Hey,
wait.
Susan. I don't even see where my hand is. Let me go see if I can turn it off.
All right, it's gone now. We're all good.
right.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Oh, no, it doesn't bother me at all. Thanks.
All right. All right. So let's see. That's all the questions that I'm seeing right now. Any other ones? Go ahead and pop them in that in the chat really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and get that link out to you for the evaluation while we see if anything else comes in.
And I just pulled up the bottom of the chat myself now. And there's one about from Carol about a universal solvent, and you're absolutely correct. Works on oils, grease, and sap, and that is absolutely true. I'm just trying not to endorse any particular product.
All right.
But yes,
Yeah.
I have it in my closet.
All right. All right. So we've got the link to the evaluation. You can go ahead and click on that and take care of that now if you'd like to. Just get it while you're thinking about it. And then you'll also get the link when we send out your presentation and the link to the recording that we're making as well. So you'll have all of this very soon. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions in. Julie, who we put on the spot, suggested olive oil also works well for sap. There we go.
I'm sure I like it on my salad actually, but
yeah.
I mean, there are some things that are just really difficult that you know, someone else I just went up here and someone had a great suggestion. Nancy said that saws can be sharpened. It's just a pain. I would agree. You know, that's where if you've got a power, you know, a skill saw of some kind where you just need a new blade at some point rather than sharpening it. I'm sure most of our parents would have said, oh no, everything can be salvaged and, you know, made new again. Well, some things not so much. And also to Nancy, with 2 bins of sand, 1 for cleaning and a second saturated with oil for lubing. It's just an environmental issue, at least in my mind, for having oily sand. I mean, we get a little bitter and twisted when there's a little oil spill out in the ocean with a tanker, because how do you get it out of the sand? So that sand has to go somewhere. And even if it's just mineral oil with a little dirt on it, it's just something that is a little more tidy if you keep the sand and the oil separate. It's just one more step. It's a small step. You'll feel good about it.
That's right.
And thank you, Julia. Shout out to you too.
All right.
It's
It
nice
looks
to
like
see so
several
many
people.
fabulous people. Thanks for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you appreciated that I took an 8-minute topic and stretched it to an hour.
That's because you went so nice and deep into everything, so we would know what was going on. Really great.
My
It looks like a
pleasure.
lot of
I
people
want to
are
wish all
very
of you a
inspired.
very happy Thanksgiving too.
That's right. There we go. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and let it go. Haven't got any more questions. That's because you covered everything so well, Susan. So we're all.
And how good would this be to clean out that turkey, or for your next pumpkin carving? A lot of good things that you can do with your tools if they're clean.
That's right.
Thank you, Julie,
There we
too,
go.
and Bridget. Nice to see all of you. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope to see you.
Carrie,
in
I haven't seen you
January.
forever. Hi, Carrie.
There you go.
All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing.